The first thing I noticed about him wasn't his piercing blue eyes or the way his presence seemed to command the space. It was the fact that he was holding a gun in one hand and my coffee cup in the other. "You're going to need both," he said, sliding into the booth across from me like we were old friends. Even though 5 minutes ago I was ready to leave this town forever. I had been stranded in Greyridge for less than 12 hours, and already the place was eating me alive. The sky hung low, like it was pressing down on the streets, and every storefront seemed one cracked window away from collapsing. But the moment this alpha detective walked in, it was like the air shifted sharper, heavier, electric. "Elliot Marlowe," he said, leaning forward. "You're the reporter from Chicago who thinks curses are just local folklore." "Not exactly," I replied, even though he was right. I didn't believe in the whispers about Greyridge people disappearing. Strange lights in the woods, screams that no one could explain. I was here for a human story. A murder, maybe.
Corruption.
Something I could print. He smiled like I had just stepped into his trap. "Then you'll come with me tonight. I want to show you why I stay in this hellhole." I should have said no. I should have left that diner, gotten back into my rental, and driven until the road signs stopped mentioning Greyridge. But I didn't, because his hand was still on my wrist, warm despite the cold, and his eyes were saying something. His words didn't. "I'll be safer with me than without me." We left the diner and stepped into the rain. He didn't offer me an umbrella. Instead, he walked close enough that our shoulders brushed every few steps. His name, I learned, was Detective Callum Vance, Alpha, Homicide Division, stationed here for the last 5 years. No partner, no friends, no one who knew what kept him awake at night. The road led us out of the main strip and into the woods. That's when I realized how quiet the place was. No cars.
No birds.
Just the sound of our footsteps in the mud. Callum stopped suddenly and looked at me. "When I tell you to run, you run. Don't wait for me. Don't try to be brave. Just run." "From what?" I asked, trying to sound calm. He didn't answer. He just kept walking. The trees broke, revealing a cluster of abandoned houses. They weren't just old, they were wrong. Roofs caved in at strange angles. Windows boarded up in haphazard patterns, like someone wanted to keep something inside. My skin prickled. "This is where they went missing," he said. 5 people. In 3 months. Before I could respond, I heard Ida low hum, deep and vibrating through my chest. It wasn't wind. It wasn't an animal. And it was getting closer. Callum moved in front of me so fast I almost didn't notice. His body tense, shoulders squared. "Stay behind me, Omega," he said, his voice low. The word made me flinch, not because it was wrong, but because I had spent years pretending I wasn't one. The hum grew into a chorus of whispers, and then like someone had flipped a switch, the world around us blurred. The houses seemed closer, the woods darker, the air thicker. My breath caught. "Callum?" I whispered, gripping his coat. "I know," he murmured. "It's starting." And then, without warning, something broke through the Shadowsa figure, pale and shifting, rushing toward us. Callum shoved me backward, his arm wrapping around my waist as his gun fired once. Twice. The thing didn't fall. It just dissolved, like smoke in the wind. But the hum didn't stop. By the time we stumbled back toward the road, I was shaking so badly my knees nearly gave out. Callum didn't let go of me until we were back under the dim streetlights. "You still think this is folklore?" he asked, his breath warm against my ear. I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure if I was more terrified of the thing we'd just seen or of how badly I wanted him to keep holding me. We spent the rest of the night in his apartment, which was more of a fortress than a home. Steel locks on every door, blackout curtains, a wall of old case files. I sat on his couch, wrapped in a blanket that smelled faintly of cedar and gunpowder, watching him strip off his wet coat. "You don't trust easily," I said. "Neither do you," he replied without looking at me. When his eyes finally met mine, it was like the room shifted again, not with danger this time, but with something warmer, heavier. He crossed the space between us slowly, like I might vanish if he moved too fast. "I don't bring people here," he said quietly. "But you're in this now. whether you want to be or not. And then he was close enough that I could feel the heat from his skin, close enough that I could see the faint scar running along his jaw. I should have pulled away. Instead, I stayed. Because maybe, just maybe, in a cursed town where people vanished into the dark, the most dangerous thing was how safe I felt in his arms. The storm didn't stop the next night. If anything, it got worse, lightning crawling across the sky like it was alive, rain hammering the streets in sheets. Callum insisted we go back to the abandoned houses. I wanted to say no, but there was no use pretending anymore. I wasn't staying because of the story, I was staying because of him. "You're not safe here," he said as he loaded his gun, slipping extra rounds into his coat. "Not unless we end this." "End a curse?" I asked. "That's not exactly in your job description." His eyes found mine, steady and unflinching. "It is now." We made our way through the drowned streets, my boots sloshing in ankle-deep water. When we reached the tree line, I caught his hand without thinking. He didn't let go. The houses looked even worse in the storm walls groaning, with splintering under the weight of the rain. The hum began again, faint at first, then swelling into that same bone-deep vibration. Callum stepped ahead, his voice low. "Stay right behind me, no matter what you see." The ground seemed to shift beneath my feet as the whispers rose around us, circling like 1,000 unseen mouths. Then, through the rain, I saw them, the missing people, or what was left of them. Their faces were pale, their eyes empty, their bodies moving like puppets on invisible strings. "Don't look at them," Callum barked, grabbing my chin and forcing me to meet his eyes. "They'll pull you in." But one of them looked like a boy I'd known in school, the one who used to slip me notes when the world got too loud. My chest tightened. "They're not real," Callum said, reading my thoughts. "They're bait." The figures surged forward. Callum fired, each shot breaking them apart into clouds of ash that vanished into the rain. I tried to move, but something cold and wet wrapped around my ankle. I was yanked off my feet, slamming into the mud as the whispers poured into my head. "You don't belong here, Omega. You'll never belong anywhere." I gasped for air, my vision blurring. Then Callum was there, dragging me up, his arms locking around me like he could anchor me to reality. "Stay with me, Elliot." His voice cut through the noise, rough and desperate. "You hear me? Stay with me." I clung to him like he was the only solid thing left in the world. And maybe he was. We stumbled into one of the houses, slamming the warped door behind us. Inside, the air was heavy, metallic, thick enough to choke on. A single table sat in the center of the room, carved with symbols that seemed to twist if you looked too long. "This is it," Callum said, panting. "The heart of it." He pulled a small flask from his coat, unscrewing the cap to reveal a thick, dark liquid. "My father taught me this. You pour it on the mark, you burn it, you don't look back." "What happens if it doesn't work?" I asked. His eyes softened, just for a moment. "Then I make sure you get out, even if I don't." Before I could answer, the walls shuddered. The whispers rose to a deafening roar, and the shadows bled from the corners of the room, forming something tall, faceless, and furious. Callum shoved the flask into my hands. "Do it, Elliot." My fingers shook as I poured the liquid onto the table. It hissed like acid, the symbols writhing as if they were alive. The shadow lunged. Callum met it head-on, his body slamming into mine as he shielded me. I struck the match. Flames roared across the table, bright enough to blind. The shadow screamed a sound so raw and inhuman it felt like it was tearing the air apart. And then, just like that, it was gone. We stumbled outside, the rain extinguishing the last of the fire clinging to our clothes. The hum was gone. The whispers were gone. For the first time since I'd arrived, Graridge was silent. I turned to him, my heart still pounding. "You did it." He shook his head. "We did it." For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then he reached up, brushing the rain from my face with his thumb. His touch was warm despite the cold. "You could leave now," he said quietly. "You probably should." I stepped closer, so close our foreheads nearly touched. You think I'm going anywhere after all this? His breath caught, and then his mouth was on mine hard, certain, like he'd been holding it back for years. I kissed him back, my hands gripping the front of his coat, not because I was afraid of losing my balance, but because I was afraid of letting go. When we finally pulled apart, the storm had eased into a soft drizzle. The streetlights flickered back to life. Grayridge wasn't safe. Maybe it never would be. But as long as Callum was here, neither of us would face it alone. And for the first time, the cursed town didn't feel like a trap. Felt like home. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.